NAIC is 2 weeks away and we have to start preparing. Hey, Nick from NAIC TCG, and today we're going to be talking about the best decks that you should be considering for NAIC. It's the biggest tournament of the year, and I mean that. It's honestly, I think it's a little bit bigger than Worlds. It might not be as prestigious as Worlds, but it's bigger in terms of the number of people that attend. So NAIC is going to be a really good time, and I'm very much looking forward to being there. So if you're going to NAIC, please come say hi. It means so much to me. But anyway, we're going to go ahead. Trainer Hill, that's the website we're going to be working at today, and we're going to be looking at all the most important decks, talking about what they look like, their place in the meta, and finishing off with a tier list. So let's get right to it. So I think it's important to, first, link in the video description, but I think it's important to talk about what my parameters are for, when we talk about these meta decks and all that kind of stuff. So we're looking at standard format, at least 30 players in the tournament, and these are from when the day Paldea Evolved released, June 9th, all the way up to today, which is June 19th. I had to look 3 times because I couldn't remember. We're going to look at the last 7 days because when the set first comes out, people might not have all the cards. They might not have the, the better list. They might not be comfortable playing it yet in tournaments. So now that a little bit of time has passed, we can see, okay, people are really playing Chien Pao Baxcalibur. People are playing Gardevoir, Lost Zone, Lugia, and Giratina Lost Zone. Those are the top 5 decks in terms of meta percent or meta share. And Chien Pao is really, really popular. And if I were to guess, if I were going to go, well, I am going to NAIC, if I was going to bet money on the decks that I think people are going to be playing, it's going to be those top 6. Those are the top 6 decks that I would expect to see, and the ones that you need to know and, be prepared for. So we're going to focus on those decks. For the purpose of this video, we're only going to really be looking at the top 5. However, I've talked about Mew in the past, and it's Mew. It's been around forever, so, there's plenty of information on Mew already. We don't have to talk about it too much. I really want to focus on some of the new stuff in the format, and Mew doesn't change a whole ton. We are starting with the Chien Pao Baxcalibur deck for 2 reasons. One, it's the most popular deck being played right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the more popular decks played at NAIC. It's a brand new Pokemon. It's really, really good, and honestly, a lot of the cards are reprints, or you already have them. They've been around for a while. Astral Radiance, when the Palkia V-Star came out, was a little while ago, so a lot of these cards, aside from the Chien Pao and the Baxcalibur and the Iono, are either reprints or they're really cheap. And honestly, even the Chien Pao, you need 3 of them, and they're only $10 each on TCG Player at the time of recording. So not too expensive if you have a lot of these already. It's really, really good. And we'll talk very quickly about the game plan of the deck, which is to use Chien Pao to get energies into your hand from your deck. Shivery Chill is the ability. You get to search your deck. When it's in the active, you get to use Shivery Chill, search your deck for 2 water energies, put them into your hand. Then you can go ahead and use Baxcalibur's Super Cold ability to put as many water energies as you want from your hand to your Pokemon in play. Incredible ability. Now, we also have Radiant Greninja, which lets us go ahead and discard a water energy from our hand to draw 2 cards. So we have a little bit of consistency. We can go ahead and search guaranteed for the water energy to then discard with Radiant Greninja's concealed cards to draw 2. Once we get a bunch of energies into the discard, we can use Palkia V-Star's ability, Star Portal, to get 3 water energies out of the discard and attach them to our water Pokemon in any way we want. So we have them in hand, we can use Baxcalibur. We got them in the discard, we can go ahead and use the Palkia. And that's really cool because Chien Pao's attack, Hailblade, requires us to discard water energies from our Pokemon in order to do more damage. You do 60 damage for each water energy you discard from your Pokemon. And that's really good because we could do a massive amount of damage just by discarding 6 energies. We could do 360 damage, enough to KO anything in the game at the moment. So that's really, really cool. And then once we have those 6 energies in the discard, we can go ahead and use Palkia to get 3 of them out of the discard. And then we can use Superior Energy Retrieval to get up to 4 more energies out of the discard. So that means if we discard 1 for turn with the concealed cards, and then discard 6 with Hailblade. That's 7 in the discard. We can recover all 7 in a single turn by using Star Portal and 1 Superior Energy Retrieval. How do we guarantee that we find those things? We have Irida. Irida lets us search a deck for a water Pokemon and an item, so we can go ahead and guaranteed find the Palkia V-Star and the Superior Energy Retrieval, so we can make that happen. We could also, if it's our first turn and we're going second, we can use Irida to search for a Battle VIP Pass to set up the Palkia, the Chien Pao, the Frigibacks. We can go ahead and get Beaverell, or Bidoof rather. I think Bidoof and the Beaverell line is really important for a deck like this, because you want to draw and you really want to be able to find those Superior Energy Retrievals when you need them. So it's a really good deck. You have something like Skater's Park and the other common cards. When you retreat a Pokemon, those energies don't go to the discard, they go to your hand, which means we can use on one turn, let's say our previous turn, we can go ahead and use Baxcalibur to attach energies to a Pokemon so that we have a guaranteed pivot for the following turn. Well, let's say our active gets KO'd, we promote the Pokemon that we accelerated energies to, our pivot Pokemon. Skater Park comes into play. Now when we retreat, those energies go to our hand, which means we get to essentially retreat for free and then use that Baxcalibur to put those energies somewhere else, so we can either again have a guaranteed free pivot the next turn or use them to attack. It's really, really good. I love it. We have Lost City to get rid of annoying Sableye, annoying Radiant Pokemon, things like that. The Kyogre is kind of interesting. Bench damage is always cool. I would definitely have a Manaphy. There's a lot of bench sniping going around. You can use Radiant Greninja really effectively in this deck. You could just easily attach water energies and then just hit 90 all over the place, knock out a bunch of Curlias and Comfies and all that kind of stuff. We can go ahead and we can even attack Lumineon, which means we can put Lumineon into play, search for a supporter, use it, get whatever's out of the active, right? And remember, those energies, they'll come to our hand because of Skater's Park. Promote the Lumineon, accelerate energies with either Palkia or the Baxcalibur, and now we can attack into a single prizer, put it back into the deck, and then reuse Lumineon to find another supporter later. It's really, really good. So no surprise that this deck is, being played a lot right now. It's a very good deck. Next up is Gardevoir, and Gardevoir gets a lot of new tricks with Paldea Evolved, most notably Reversal Energy, which is an incredible energy if your opponent has fewer prize cards remaining. If your opponent has taken more prize cards than you, you can attach the Reversal Energy to one of your non-rule box Pokemon, and it has to be an evolution Pokemon. So really, in this deck, it's going to be just our Shining Arcana Gardevoir. However, we can attach it to that Shining Arcana Gardevoir, and it provides 3 energies of every type. So that means Brainwave, now we, only have to attach a single energy, but it's going to do 30 more damage for each psychic energy we have attached. Well, with a single reversal energy, we're doing 90 more damage because you get 3 psychic energies. Remember, it says for each psychic energy attached, not each psychic energy card attached. And that's a big distinction. That's the difference between +0 and +90. And that doesn't include any of the energies we can accelerate from Gardevoir EX with Psychic Embrace, and we can put a bunch of energies. This lets us use a single prize Pokemon a little bit more effectively. We can, like I said, just attach the energy for turn, and now we're hitting for a lot of damage. I think it's like 150 or right off the bat, which means we're knocking out most single prize Pokemon with our Shining Arcana Gardevoir without having to damage it, and we can use those energies for the next turn somewhere else if we want. Really, really cool. It's a great way of, if we can't get around Path to the Peak for the turn, maybe we don't have a lot of stadiums, we have a Worker and a Collapsed Stadium in this 60 card list right here. Those are the only 2 ways we're going to be able to deal with a stadium. So, maybe you can't find your Collapsed, maybe you used your Worker, maybe you don't have, you just can't, whatever, you're digging and it's prize. Something happens. We still have a way of attacking pretty effectively with a single prize Pokemon. So that's really, really cool. Otherwise, the deck doesn't change a ton. You're going to get 4 Ionos in there. And I think another really important card for this deck is Super Rod. previously, the best Pokemon recovery we had was Miriam, and using your supporter to draw 3 and put a couple of Pokemon back into your deck was really, really bad. So now we can go ahead and use the item Super Rod to do it for us, which is so much better. So now we can actually go ahead, use the Super Rod, and then play a Professor's Research or play an Iono to either try to find what we just put back into the deck or just disrupt our opponent a little bit more. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Otherwise, the last card that I really want to talk about, because there really hasn't been a ton of change to the Gardevoir deck, is the Luxray with, I don't remember the name of the ability, but it's the Luxray from Paldea Evolved. And if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, right? Your opponent has taken more prize cards, the same condition that Reversal Energy needs in order to get 3 energies, you could take that Luxray and play it from your hand straight to the bench without having to evolve it. That Luxray does 180 damage, which means we can attach a single Reversal Energy because its attack is for 3, a lightning and 2 colors, so 2 lightning and a colors. It doesn't really matter because Reversal Energy gives us 3 energies of all kinds, so it doesn't really make a difference what the energy requirement is because it's another non-rule box evolution Pokemon. So we can make the maximum use of something like Reversal Energy and attack with Luxray for 180 damage. Now, why would we use this instead of something like the Gardevoir? Well, because Lugia is weak to Lightning. Palkia is weak to Lightning. Random things like Flying Pikachu VMAX is weak to Lightning. It's a really good card, and also just hitting for 180 can be better than hitting for 150 in some instances. So really, really cool that we can throw that in there and make it happen. You can use Luminion, you can use Forest Sealstone. If you're going to be, I think the Forest Sealstone works better if you're running more than one Zacian V. Trying to really make that happen can be a little difficult, but if you're running the Luminion or you're running like 2 Zacian Vs, then I think the Forest Sealstone is really cool. Heavy Ball might be cool for finding your mana fee so that you're not getting obliterated by Chien Pao, what's they called, the Radiant Greninjas. That's really important. So Heavy Ball might be something you want to find. Penny, yeah, again, might be more worth it if you're running something like 2 Zacian Vs because you're going to put some energies onto that Zacian V. It's probably going to get KO'd, but it could be useful. Your opponent hits into you, and they don't knock out your Zacian where you just pick it up, and now you deny those 2 prizes, and it's really cool. But without the Luminion, I'm not crazy about it. Tempo Sinnoh can be really nice, but remember, Tempo Sinnoh will turn off your Reversal Energy, so I can kind of see why it's falling a little bit out of favor in some lists. But Gardevoir, similar, but better, if that is possible. Next up is Lost Zone decks, which are really, really good. They have such strong comeback potential between things like Dragonite, Raikou, to kind of get you to that early and mid game, and then you have the Kyogre from Celebrations to finish off the game later. I mean, Lost Zone at this point, I think a lot of people know what it does, but the idea is to get up to 10, if not more, cards into the Lost Zone. When you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone, you can use Cramorant to attack for free. When you have 7 cards in the Lost Zone, you can use Mirage Gate to search your deck for 2 different basic energies and then attach them to your Pokemon any way you want. And when you get to 10 cards in the Lost Zone, we can go ahead and use Sableye Lost Mine to place 12 damage counters anywhere we want for just a single Psychic Energy, which is absolutely unbelievable. And our 2 main ways of getting cards into the Lost Zone are Comfey, which has the Flower Selecting ability. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand, 1 into the Lost Zone, and Colress's Experiment. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, 3 go into your hand, 2 go into the Lost Zone. It means if you get 2 Comfeys in a single turn and use a Colress, then you're attacking with Cramorant for free, and that's really, really good on your first turn going second. We also have things like Lost Vacuum, so we can go ahead, put down a Stadium, we can go ahead, get an Artizone, for example, or a Pokestop into play, use it, and then Lost Vacuum it away, because we have to Lost Zone a card from our hand in order to use Lost Vacuum, and then we can get that Stadium into the Lost Zone as well. So that's 2 cards going into the Lost Zone when we play something like a Lost Vacuum. We can also do that to get rid of a Forest Seal Stone. Say we're playing a version that runs Dragonite and Raikou and Drapion. Forest Seal Stone seems like a pretty good option at that point. You just get to search your deck for any cards you want, which is very, very strong. But after we use the Forest Seal Stone Ability Star Alchemy, we have no more use for it. So we might as well just Lost Zone it to help us get to 10 faster, so we can start using Mirage Gates and Lost Mine a little bit easier. So I really like this deck. I'm not smart enough. I don't think I'm smart enough to play the Kyogre version. But if you are playing the Kyogre, you definitely need. This says a lot of people are playing 2. I would even go maybe 3 energy recyclers, just because you might Lost Zone one gets prized, and then, I mean, I guess if one's prized, the thing about the Kyogre build is that you really want to not take more than 2 prizes until you're ready to win the game. Because if you take more than 2 prizes, your opponent's going to hit you with a Roxanne. Or if you start taking 3, 4 prizes, your opponent's going to hit you now, especially with Iono. And that's going to put you down to like 2 cards in hand. And then if you kind of whiff them, you draw 2 energies, yeah, sure, maybe you can get something going off the Greninja, maybe you can get something going off the Kramer, the Comfey, but it's an if, and you might not have enough to make something like a big play happen, especially with Iono, where those cards are guaranteed going to the bottom of your deck, versus something like a Roxanne where you shuffle your hand into your deck, and maybe you'll see what you need. With Iono, they are to the bottom of your deck. So if that last energy recycle was in your hand and you put it to the bottom of the deck and you have no way of digging enough to get that back, unless you get to shuffle your deck, it's just not happening. So you'd have to play something like a Nest Ball or honestly, I guess a Super Rod. Those are really a Mirage Gate. Those are the only 3 cards that let you search your deck and that we have right here. Artazone is another one, I guess. But for the most part, I really do like this deck. I don't think I'm smart enough to play the Kyogre build, so I'd rather just play the V box, the Dragonite, the Raikou, the Drapion. I really do think you need something to deal with Mew. Drapion is that, especially because the Fusion Strike builds are playing less Judge and less Path to the Peak, which is good for us. So we can go ahead and use Drapion a little bit easier into their Mew VMAX. We can go ahead, hit with Raikou really hard into a Genesect, and then we can go ahead and hit with, Dragonite and stuff like that. So between Dragonite and Raikou, we can easily take out either 2 Genesects or a Mew VMAX, and then Drapion to get the last 3 prizes. So, Lost Zone hasn't really changed a ton. It doesn't really gain much except for the Super Rod. Other than that, Super Rod, Artazone, and the deck is pretty much identical to what it was, but it's still really good. So something that you have to know what it does and know what the lists look like and what they're playing, even though it's not really different, which is good. It's one less thing you have to learn. One of the more fluid decks in the format is Lugia. We have a few different ways of playing Lugia at the moment. You have a straight colorless build with the Snorlax, and you can throw in the therapeutic energy, so it can't fall asleep, which is really cool. You can play it with the Lux Rays and the reversal energies, which I think reversal energy in Lugia goes really well. Archeops gets to now attack for a single attachment. The Lux Ray gets to attack for a single attachment. Again, hit 180, which is really, really nice. Into the Mirror, into Palkias, into anything really. 180 is a pretty good number, especially on a single prize for 1 attachment. Can't stress that enough. It's Lugia still. It's still really solid. I think Squawkabilly helps the list, although people don't really seem to be playing it. The Bravery Charm is kind of interesting to make your Tyrantars a little harder to KO, your Snorlaxes harder to KO, your Weirdeer. Weirdeer is a really cool card for a deck like Lugia, because Weirdeer says when you move this Pokemon from the bench to the active, you get all your energies from those Pokemon to the Weirdeer, and then you do more damage based on the number of energies attached to the Weirdeer. So you get to go ahead and power up your Pokemon thanks to Archeops. You can get 4 special energies a turn attached to your Pokemon, not including attaching for turn. Then you get to move them all to the Weirdeer, and next thing you know, you're hitting 4 massive damage. And because of Charm or Bravery Charm, it's a little bit harder for your opponent to KO. So kind of cool. I think the biggest issue is just still the setup, right? For me, I can't tell you the number of times I've started with Minion and nothing else, and you're like, well, I guess I just lose, or I really need to hit a Tails turn 1 on this Capturing Aroma so I can find a Lugia V. It's a heads. I guess I'm just not going to set up. That's like the biggest problem with this. You're running, a few nest balls. So it looks like 2 nest balls. You're running 4 capturing aromas. You're running 4 ultra balls, 4 Lugia Vs, and sometimes you still just can't find the Lugia. It's really annoying, and that's kind of why I like Squawkability, because there are times where I have nest ball in my hand, but I don't need anything, and I need to get rid of the Archeops. I need to discard them. I really wish this nest ball was an ultra ball. Well, now with Squawkability, you can play the nest ball, get the Squawkability into play, use Squawk and seize the ability on Squawkability, which says you can only use it on your first turn, but you can discard your hand and then draw 6, which is really, really cool. That means we play those Ultra Balls to find the Archeops, and then we can go ahead and use Squawk and Seize to discard them, draw 6 cards, and hopefully find what we need. But Lugia is another one that really hasn't changed a ton. If you're playing the colorless build, it's going to be the Snorlax, it's going to be the Reversal Energy, probably Weird Deer, Therapeutic Energy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Luxray in there. You're already playing the Reversal Energy. Or you can go and play against the Single Strike version, which is this Single Strike version we've been seeing for the last couple of months. So not really too much to change there either. A deck that gets a lot better because of a small inclusion is Lost Zone Giratina, and the card that makes it a lot better is Jet Energy, which says when you attach this card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, you can then move that Pokemon to the active spot. And this is great for when you have multiple Comfies in play. If you have a Comfy in the active, it's your very first turn, and you start with a Comfy in the active, you use that Flower Selecting, you bench another Comfy. Or you bench 2 more Comfies, right? You have 2 Comfies on the bench. You have Comfy A in the active, Comfy B and C on the bench. You use Comfy A's Flower Selecting, attach Jet Energy to Comfy B. It moves into the active. You then use Flower Selecting on Comfy B. Then you can use Jet Energy to retreat the Comfy B into Comfy C and use its Flower Selecting. And now for you played 1 card, and you got to use 3 Flower Selectings. That is absolutely massive. Now you play a Colress, and you're already at 5 cards in the Lost Zone for the turn. That's massive. Then you can go ahead, play your Switch card or your Escape Rope to get something like a Cramorant into the active, and there you go, you're off to the races. It's really, really strong. We can pair that with something like Abyss Seeking to get even more cards into the Lost Zone as early as possible. So I think it's really, really great. Super Rod, again, for the same reason that Gardevoir benefits from Super Rod, this does as well. Getting those Pokemon and those energies back into the deck without having to use your supporter can be really important. Otherwise, the deck doesn't change a whole lot. Cleansing Gloves, if you're worried about Mew, I think, and even Gardevoir, is a really important card to use. If you're really worried about Mew and other V Pokemon, you can go ahead and use Choice Belt. If you're really worried about Gardevoir, then I would put in the Cleansing Gloves, because remember, Choice Belt only works on Pokemon V, and Gardevoir is an EX. So something to consider. I would still probably play the Energy Recycler. You are going to be discarding cards just to attack, and when you attack, they go into the Lost Zone with Giratina, but retreating and all that kind of stuff, and using something like the Greninja, and you're going to want those energies back eventually. So if you're playing a higher Super Rod count, maybe you don't care about the energy retrieval. If you're playing a lower energy count of the Super Rod because you don't care about recovering as many Pokemon, maybe you do like a 1/1 Super Rod energy recycler just to get, later in the game, you guaranteed to get a bunch of energies into the deck, so you can go ahead and Mirage Gate them. That's all up to you and how you like to play. I do think Thornton's kind of cool. Thornton lets you turn one of your basic Pokemon in play into a basic Pokemon from your discard pile, which means if your opponent knocks out your Giratina V before you ever get a chance to evolve it, and you don't have another one on the bench, you can turn that useless Comfy on the bench into a Giratina V, thanks to something like Thornton. Then you can evolve and start swinging with a Giratina V-Star out of nowhere. Really, really cool. What I want to do to finish off the video is kind of make a tier list talking about what decks I think are really, really good going into NAIC, knowing what we know about the list, how popular they are, and also just what my personal thoughts are on them. And we'll just kind of go in the order here. I think Gardevoir is a very, very good deck. It has so many options, so many lines of play between attacking with the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. You can use the Gardevoir EX, which has a lot of health, to kind of wall things out that can't one-shot you. You can use Luxray. You have a lot of options, and you can just hit super, super hard. Zacian can ramp up damage really fast as well. It's just the Kirlia engine between and Radiant Gardevoir. You could draw so many cards in a single turn. It is absurd. Chien Pao I'm putting in tier 2 for the moment. I think it's really good. I just don't think it has everything it needs. I think it suffers from a little bit of inconsistency. It just doesn't do what it wants to do what Gardevoir does. It just doesn't do it as well. You don't have something as strong as the Kirlia engine to draw through your deck to find the pieces you need in order to make it happen. Yes, you need your your stage 2 Gardevoir to make the deck really, really roll, but you can get that going a turn or two later than you can with Chien Pao, because you really need the Baxcalibur in order to accelerate energies. Yeah, you have the Palkia, so that's a fair counterpoint if you're me and making that point to yourself, but you kind of see it. You really need the Baxcalibur going, and there's a lot that can hurt the Chien Pao deck. You're reliant on attacking with stage 2s most of the time. I guess a 2-prize Pokemon most of the time. So that can be really challenging as well, whereas Gardevoir can swap into some single prizes, which is why I think it's a worse Gardevoir, but we'll just need some time to tell. Lost Zone, I think, is another S tier deck. I think it's super good. It has such a strong comeback potential. It's not even funny. And the fact that they can, again, just like the Gardevoir deck, dig through their whole deck really, really fast and then just put guaranteed 5 energies back into the deck with Energy Recycler. Kyogre can hit for huge damage thanks to energy, getting the deck down to 0, energy recycling 5 energies, guaranteed hit for 250 damage onto 2 bench Pokemon, which means you could take 4 prizes, maybe more, if you set it up with Cramorants and the Sableye. You can take 4 to 6 prizes in a single attack, which is absolutely crazy. You're always out of Roxanne range. You're going to get a good amount of cards back with Diono. It's just so good. I think Lugia stays in tier A. It just has, it's Lugia. It has so much power. The only thing that keeps it from tier S, in my opinion, is the first 2 turns. If you can get your Archeops into the discard, have a Lugia, and then evolve that Lugia and use the ability. I know it sounds like a lot. It's really not that terrible. But if you could do all that in your first 2 turns, maybe 3 if you went first, you can really start to put a lot of pressure. You can attack with a ton of Pokemon. You have so much versatility, so much power, and guaranteed energy acceleration. It's really hard to keep things trapped in the active unless you are paralyzing things, but then it's you have jet energies, you have all this kind of stuff. You can maybe squeeze in an escape rope or a switch or something if you really wanted to. There's just some really cool maneuvers that you can make with Lugia. It's just so much power. I think Giratina Lost Zone is another very, very good deck. I'm unsure if it's a tier A, but I'm going to give it tier A for now because I think the potential is really there. I think Jet Energy makes it so much better of a deck, allowing you to maneuver a little bit easier. You just being able to instantly KO Gardevoir EX with a cleansing gloves, Lost Impact, and then KO another one or another Pokemon with Star Requiem, just instantly KO whatever's in the active, is very, very powerful. You still have access to Sableye and Cramorants and the Lost Zone engine as a whole. So really, what's not to like about the deck? I think Fusion Mew is probably a little bit better than Lugia. It has the added bonus that it's really powerful, really good draw, and it has the added bonus of being able to block or turn off your opponent's abilities. You don't have to worry about your opponent stopping your Genesect with Ting Lu because Fusion Strike Energy says they're not affected by your opponent's abilities, which is really powerful. So you can still guaranteed have some draw with the Genesect by spreading out those Fusion Strike Energies, and you can use Elisa Sparkle to put 2 Fusion Strike Energies onto 2 different Genesects and still attach for turn, which is really, really strong. So there's so much going for Genesect. You're attacking with single prize Pokemon with the Meloetas. You can throw a Deoxys in there. You're attacking with Mew VMAX. You can Psychic Leap to deny those prizes and he'll go back into the deck. And you can put those all the stuff back into it. It's really strong. It's really good. It's really annoying. And I do think you need a Mew counter, or at least something to deal with Mew, because it's been doing really well at these regions. Arceus Giratina, I think, is very, very good. I don't know if things like Iono, Temple of Sinnoh, Path of the Peak, some of these decks hitting, like a lot of these decks don't, outside of maybe the Fusion Mew, none of these decks are really gonna threaten a KO. I guess the Lugia could, but Gardevoir doesn't, Lost Zone doesn't, Giratina doesn't, Chien Pao does. And Lugia does, and Mew can, right? So half of these decks can kind of threaten KOs immediately onto your Arceus, which can be really scary. So if you don't find the double turbo energy, you're in a little bit of hot water. If you don't find an Arceus turn 1, you're a little bit into dead water. If you don't find an Arceus V-Star or anything, there's just so much that can kind of go wrong with Arceus decks, but you do have the consistency of Starburst, Trinity Charge, Trinity Nova. You're putting out good damage. There's just so much going for it. Plus, you have the crazy good beat stick that is Giratina V-Star, and you can Iono Path, Judge Path to really kind of take your opponent out of the game. So if you get it going, it works really, really well. Chien Pao is kind of a problem for Arceus because you can knock out an Arceus very, very easily with a Chien Pao. Whether you go first or second, it doesn't really matter. That Chien Pao is probably coming for you. It gets really difficult, and I've been talking to some people who are big fans of Arceus V-Star, and they just feel like Chien Pao kind of completely tears up Arceus decks. It makes it really hard and kind of keeping them out of top cuts. So if Chien Pao is really popular, it might be really difficult to play an Arceus deck, even though I do think they are better than Chien Pao decks. Next is Ting Lu. I don't think Ting Lu is very good. I personally like it. I think it's fun. I think it's annoying to play against, but there's so many ways you can deal with Ting Lu. You can just, if they only have one Ting Lu in play, you play Escape Rope, and now you can use your abilities again. If your opponent has more than one Ting Lu in play, you play Boss's Orders, and you bring up something else, and now you can use your abilities again, regardless of how many damage counters your Pokemon have on them. And it doesn't stop Pokemon EX, which means it doesn't stop Gardevoir EX, it doesn't stop Miraidon EX, it's not going to stop, those are really the two big EXs. Chien Pao EX, it doesn't stop a good amount of Pokemon, which is really, really annoying. So that's kind of something to consider. You're not really doing a ton of damage. Lugia resists fighting, Gardevoir resists fighting, most Psychic Pokemon resist fighting, which means you're only doing 120. So now you're 3-shotting these Pokemon, which is brutal. And you need an attack for 3 fighting energies to even make that happen. I'm just not a huge fan as much as I want it to be like good and popular. I think Mew Genesect is still good. I don't know if it's as good as the Fusion Strike build, because you do want to be able to prevent against Ting Lu just turning off your deck entirely. You want to prevent against things like Spiritomb if somebody's coming with some heavy Mew counters. You can get around those things with Fusion Strike Mew that you can't get around with just the regular DTE Mew Genesect. Even though if you're looking for the more consistent build, Mew Genesect is it. It's a little bit easier to just path and judge your opponent out of the game with Mew Genesect, because you have a lot of lost vacuums and a lot of paths. So you can just say, okay, I'll lost vacuum my own path, and then I'll draw a bunch of cards, and then I'll finally hit you with the judge. And if I find another path, I'll just put it down to keep you from using your abilities. Really, really kind of annoying, honestly, and it's just really good. It just doesn't have the same turn 1 KO donk that Fusion Strike Mew has, and it doesn't have the ability blocking protection that Fusion Strike Mew has, that I do think you kind of want right now. Arceus Duraludon, I don't think is as good. Chien Pao can really deal with it. Fusion Mew can deal with it. Gardevoir deals with it. Lugia, if you have a single strike Urshifu, can deal with it. Giratina can deal with it. I mean, there's just so much that handles Arceus Duraludon right now that I don't know. I'm sure you can find a deck that you play well against, and I'm sure you can get wins against all these things. All these decks have the potential to fail to set up. You could throw in an Alolan Vulpix V-Star, you could throw in a Flying Pikachu VMAX, you can throw in an Umbreon. Like, you have, again, Arceus decks are just so fluid, you can kind of do whatever you want with them, and it'll still work, which is the benefit. I just don't know how I feel about Arceus Duraludon specifically right now, when so many things can ramp damage incredibly high and just instantly KO your VMAX, and then what do you do? You did all that work to set up a VMAX, and it's gone like that with a up traded, single prize Gardevoir or a 2 prize Chien Pao, or the turning off your abilities with Ting Lu, and it's just not, doesn't feel good. And then the reversal Gardevoir, I'm also going to put in C tier just because I haven't seen anything about it a ton. I know some people really like the Gardevoir Mewtwo. I haven't been seeing a ton of results from it, and it didn't look like it had a ton of great matchup data. This is what I'm the least confident about. So if you're like, Nick, I don't think that should be in C tier. I think that needs to be in A or B, whatever. You tell me, but there's the tier list. That's it. That's the most, what is that, 11 decks? So I think that's pretty good. So there you go. My contacts are bothering the hell out of me. Allergies. This is getting all like blurry and watery. So I'm going to go. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. I want to give a special shout out to the YouTube members, Black Wins, Mike the Highest, Fernando Ortiz, Chien Pao, and Eric N. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click the channel member button somewhere at the bottom of the page. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself.